The last time I made a video, I told you guys that I made more monsters. This time, I made bushes, trees, my own tiles, some of this, and way more monsters. It has begun. Hey guys, before this video starts off, I just want to say thank you to all you guys who have been watching my videos and supporting me on YouTube, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and for Affinity. It's thanks to you guys and your support that I'm able to keep developing this game. Kaiju Chronicles is getting a lot closer to development, and I am almost close enough to actually start designing the characters themselves and the abilities that they should be able to use in-game, but that's still going to be quite a while off. In the meantime, if you guys have any designs you want to recommend down below or any species you'd like to see, feel free to type them. I actually respond to almost every comment you guys leave. I really appreciate that you guys support me. I'm a very small content creator. So, as always, don't forget to support me if you want to see more of this, and let's get right into it. Because in this video, I'm going to be discussing my future plans for this game, in addition to what each character is actually inspired off of. Let's get right into it. Hello everyone, KobaltKai here. Welcome back to my development log of Kaiju Chronicles, a furry game that I'm creating. The last time that I posted a video, I showed you guys that I had created essentially more monsters. Well, this time I decided to create the biome the monsters will be hunting the character from within. So, welcome to the forest. There are not any trees yet because I have to adjust the camera to fit it, but I created some boulders. These tile sets are actually different. I had to make them from scratch because the ones that I started out with, they were nice. They were actually very nice. Bert did a really good job with them, but they were too different from the theme I was going for in this project, so I had to try something new. In any case, yeah, so I'm currently thinking of making a maze-like level for this tutorial. What you are currently looking at is actually the debug room. So, as I mentioned previously, this is a furry VORE game, and like all furry games, there are furries in it, so stay heads up. But in any case, I did mention that you would have to hide within shrubbery at times if you are being hunted by different creatures in order to avoid them. So, I am still planning on going forth with that hide mechanic. And in the meantime, I'm going to actually show you guys, well, some of these cool tiles right here. These are some of the tiles I created for different areas. I have not quite managed to create the entire zone yet to apply them in. But these are two of the kaiju that I mentioned earlier, and if you guys watched one of my previous videos, this beaver is the one that I mentioned would be possibly hunting you from the beginning of the game, so good luck with that. I also decided to try my luck with designing floating platforms, and it turned out really well, but now it's time to show you guys more monsters. So, essentially, after I showed you guys the last few bit of monsters, I decided, you know, I want every furry to be able to play this game. So I'm going to like make even more monsters. So here we are. We have, this is not Spyro the Dragon. I decided his name is Alonzo for copyright purposes. But we have one circle, one earth dragon, and this guy's actually inspired from Zod from Berserk. So, not really guaranteeing that there isn't going to be any blood here. There might actually be a bit of bloodshed in this game. Just the PG kind of blood though. Not gore, so to say. But in any case, yeah, the small beaver, the big beaver, and each one of these guys, I'm actually planning on making sure that they are characters. This is the crocodile from earlier. This bunny was actually redesigned. This bunny is actually designed and inspired from the 10 Tails from Naruto. It essentially only showed up for one episode in a non-human form, and I was like, oh hey, that's a cool form, and then it got defeated and sealed immediately. So I'm like, that sucks. That absolutely sucks, because it finally looked cool. So I basically made a character based off of it, but it was black instead. So this guy For those of you who have basically played Change before, these are draft versions of the end characters from Change. Furro, and I forgot the name of the other guy, but the main character when he's finally transferred. So there might be some transfers in this game. I'm not guaranteeing it yet, because what I have to do for that is I have to design the entire level. But that brings me to my next point. For each of these characters, I actually plan for there to be at least one room. So the way I define a room currently is one level at least as big as these. So each of these rooms would kind of exist as a kind of biome these characters can be interacted within. This guy was actually based off of Entei. So, cleared my throat a little bit. I have a lot of explaining to do because I don't normally explain this to you guys. But essentially, a lot of the characters here are based off of concepts or characters that I've seen in popular media that I kind of wish that the developers did more of with that media. This guy is based off of Arcanine because Arcanine has legendary stats. And this character is actually inspired from Shaman. So, we have the alien before, and this is actually a brand new character. He's actually inspired from Majin Buu. So this is an absorption dragon, so good luck dodging any of his attacks. He's probably going to teleport around the map, but I'm going to start explaining the rest of the characters now, so that you guys know each of them specifically. This guy, this is a Lucario and John Talbane cross, so this is actually essentially two characters in one. I'll be very transparent about that. This guy was inspired from Warwick. He will probably be saving or freeing him. This is one out of potentially 3 or 4 tigers I might be releasing in the game. We have the Tanuki, who was requested from Furrfinity because, well, I gave the option essentially that if there's any kind of character you want to see in game, you're welcome to recommend it. That option still applies, so if there's any kind of character you want to see in comments, you can also have those added or recommended as well. So we have one Forest Yeti, one Druid. So I have to change the symbol on this Druid shoulder because I'm pretty sure that is copyrighted by World of Warcraft. But this guy, his name is actually Jake Fong. It's a wordplay on Jake Long from American Dragon, not the same character. I made sure to make the upper part of his fin on top of his head. Jake Long's scale is actually black on the top. This guy's scale is actually just green, and his wings are tan instead of just being red. So I did that for copyright reasons as well. I don't plan on these characters actually being like just cheap copyright ripoffs ripoffs of copyright content. So you guys will have to wait and see what I plan to actually have added into this. But yeah, this is the content so far. This guy was inspired by the Nargacuga, like I mentioned earlier, but he is a bat. So I have my own persona added right here, and the very first centaur I've managed to ever make that does not look like a complete freak of nature. So, I don't know how I'm going to add this guy to the story because currently he's only one of 4 humans. This character is the first one. This guy might be the 4th. But this guy, this bug right here, is actually based off of Imperfect Cell. So he's also got a tail that can be used to absorb enemies. I don't know if I'm going to have him be played at, you can play as him starting off or later on in the game. But yeah, that's a concept that I rarely see explored in the furry community without it being basically just a bit blatant copy and paste with insert characters. I wanted to do my own spin on it. But that being said, this character is inspired by Tom Kinch, complete with the tongue, but instead this is actually a fraud. It is not Tom Kinch, again for copyright reasons. And this brings us to the next row. So this character, actually all of these characters that you're looking at are gargoyles that were inspired from Disney's Gargoyle franchise. I had to find a way to add my own designs to them. For this character was inspired by Bronx, but I essentially added a dorsal fin and a tail fin where he did not have any at all. So I kind of wanted to get into some specific themes concerning those. Possibly I'll have to wait and see like what's congruent with like the narrative and whatnot, because I basically plan on like dropping the character that works best for the environment and then adding the story in a way that makes sense. So I'm not going to like have a fire dragon like this in a forest like we're in right now, or this guy's name is Bryson Bauer. I'm not going to have Bryson essentially in a random forest. He'd be in a lava area. So that being said, yeah, this is another one of my personas that you can find on Fur Affinity. This guy was also inspired by John Talbane. I'll be honest about that. Frankly, I kind of just like the design of some of these characters, but this guy, this is actually my first ever drawn primate. The name is Zuberity Norman. So, I wanted to design a character that was inspired, but is not based off of Donkey Kong, and this was the result. There used to be like a large lawsuit between Nintendo and the makers of King Kong because of just the name Kong, so I made sure to make the colors different as well. This guy, as I mentioned before, was inspired by Willem from League of Legends. I kinda wanted to know what it was like to be able to play as like the monster for once without Nunu attached, but well, League of Legends never really releases a PvE game mode where you're just playing against actual enemies by yourself, so I designed a character based off of it, and then I decided to make a bigger version of that same idea. So, this guy's name, I think his name is Yvonne. No, it's something. I made it an interesting name, but this guy's name, 90% sure it's Chester. So I gave each of these different characters a different name. This is a Yeti of my own design, personally. This is a werewolf of my own design. This guy was inspired by Charizard. There might be a flight mechanic. This guy is based off the Ninetales. This is the second Ninetales. And these are the other two humans that I currently have planned for development. I plan to add maybe, considering how easy it is to draw the humans because of their size, there might be about 100 other humans that I will add. I just intend to make a game that's like fully developed. I don't want to make like a mini game essentially and then say, I'll make another game that'll have these characters in it as well. So, this guy was actually specifically designed based off of Lexington from the Gargoyles. So if you guys couldn't tell at this point, I basically designed each of these characters with love and I plan to animate them accordingly. So, this is an armadillo, well, this is a pangolin request, as I mentioned before, that was also from Fur Affinity. And I made sure to bring this one to life. I have not fully cleaned the sprites yet, but I do plan to have him play essentially like Sonic the Hedgehog, in that he can turn into a ball and basically spin dash. So, we have a panda, inspired from We Bare Bears, and a very specific otter. You may want to keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't get eaten across the series. But, we have one primate and orangutan based off of the Ozaru forms from Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. We have one Naga based off of, well, furry concepts for good measure. And two Minotaurs who are, honestly, I wasn't too sure that I could properly design Minotaur's designs too well, but I think these turned out pretty good. So we have the Beta Minotaur and the Alpha Minotaur that has bigger horns. So we have different character designs. Oh wow, my tongue's getting dry. Anyway, this guy is a specific species. It was actually originally based off of Red X, but I think my tongue will get twisted at this point trying to say the name. So I'm gonna try anyway. It's a I actually forgot. Okay, oh yeah, it's a cougar of some sort. So wow, I put way too much time and effort into designing these characters almost, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that whichever one of these characters you played as, because I do plan on each of these characters being playable, it feels a lot, I mean, it feels real, and it basically is real, essentially. So, this is possibly the last character you might be able to unlock in the game, if I'm going by my current plan. This guy is also possibly a boss that is going to kick the butt of half of the cast you see here. This turtle was inspired by Squirtle, but I wanted it to be original. This guy was inspired by Lugia, and this guy was actually inspired from Steven Universe with the Steven sword, but also with Barney. So, we have the dragon that was inspired from Barbfooter, as well as the werewolf that is inspired actually from Sonic Unleashed. The werewolf form was actually a pretty interesting idea, but it was a few things that ruined it. The werewolf form was not conducive to the high-speed boost gameplay that Sonic Unleashed basically introduced. So it felt like another game. I feel like if it were released separately or as its own game, it would have been a lot cooler, honestly. But anyway, this character was actually inspired, this kangaroo was actually inspired by Mewtwo. For those of you who do not know, Mewtwo is basically a Pokemon. Why am I explaining Mewtwo? You guys already know. Mewtwo is a Pokemon that was designed off of a cat, a kangaroo, among several other elements. But personally, I found his design too uncanny, and the amount of times he shows up a little bit disappointing for a long-time Pokemon fan. When he does show up, they do make it worth it, but now that the main lore with Ash Ketchum, who Mewtwo started with, is gone, I don't know if we're ever going to see Mewtwo ever again. So I made my own character based off of it for fun. So this guy's actually, funnily enough, based off of Ice Age. And this character is actually, this is a male, this is a full-grown adult red panda. I want to emphasize this, but this character is actually inspired from the movie Turning Red. So hopefully, if I implement it correctly, there might be some transformation scenes with this character based off the original lore. But this is a smaller, fatter Tanuki, and this is a regular-sized raccoon that is about, and I'm going to say this honestly, this raccoon is about 10 feet tall. The raccoon that I'm showing you. All of these guys are basically mutant animals that are larger than humans because humanity essentially found, in their own form or fashion, a way to biodevelop superheroes. And the way they did this is that they found bacteria that are symbiotic to humanity, and what they did is they accelerated it to a quantum particle accelerator. So they put the bacteria in a quantum particle accelerator, and what essentially happened is they injected the bacteria and it caused mutations. So they injected antibodies against potential future diseases so humanity doesn't have to worry about so many viruses like COVID, you know, because COVID, and it sucked. My family actually just got over COVID, so I'm taking it a little personally, but essentially, each of the monsters that you're seeing right here are essentially mutations that are a result of the 0.01% of bacteria surviving within that sterilized quantum accelerator and evolving to essentially become mutagenic in their own regard. So each of these is essentially a mutagen that these bacteria release. So the superheroes are essentially forced to fight you guys, and essentially you're playing as the villain. You are the monsters that are broken out of containment breach. The superheroes are trying to either bring back in check before you mutate too much and are too powerful to control, or before things get out of hand. Because if you couldn't tell by the design and size of these characters right here, which are both about, if I estimate correctly, 7 to 10 feet tall each, these monsters are basically, they're kaiju sized. The camera is super zoomed out right now so that you can actually see their faces. But if I were to actually go up to one of these, like this one for example, and just stand beside it at the same size, it can't fit on the screen. It's too big. So, since I've entertained the subject of all these different characters, and since I've designed all these different floating mountains, I do want to mention a few things about this game that I may not have been clear about before. Since this is an adventure game, it will have some platforming. It might be some click on the screen and teleport there platforming. It might be some double jump platforming. It might actually just depend on the character you're using. So characters like this guy, this Yeti style bee, he can hover, he can fly. This demon can fly, or rather this behemoth can fly. It's actually a behemoth, not a demon. This dragon can just probably fly like over for about 5 seconds. The Sergal can probably run like for about 7. This guy run for about 6. And what I wanted to do with this shaman inspired character was essentially have him be able to fly all the time, just like for fun, to really capture the way that I actually felt when I first saw a shaman. Because honestly, I don't know if I explained this, but the reason I'm designing so many characters is because I am super pissed off about all the different kinds of Pokemon we have and all the different kinds of Digimon that we have, but the way that you interact with each of them as a player is universally the same. And the way it feels, honestly, is that no matter what size your Digimon is, it's running behind you. You guys saw Digimon like Zed Millenniumon and like Digimon 2020, a literal darkness god capable of destroying a multiverse or any universe it touches by just coming into contact with it. In the Digimon games, it's essentially treated as a pet that just follows you around, and it is scaled to be about the same size as this pig. Honestly. And that's kind of a letdown, because when we were playing a monster game, what I realized, the thing that upsets me the most about monster games is that they should feel like monsters. You know, you beat Kyogre, it's about to flood all of Hoenn, and when you finally get the Pokemon to follow behind you, it's, how can I describe this? The Pokemon, it's a tiny dot. Like, if I were to just, like, it would basically just be about as tiny as this. It's not even as large as this fox, honestly. Anytime a Pokemon or a Digimon is basically added to a game, it's essentially just like, it's scaled down. Like Wailord, for example, you will never find a Wailord in a Pokemon game that is the same size as this fox that I've literally just drawn. It's just not something Game Freak had in mind. But these are essentially most of the characters that I have designed up to this point, and I do actually have different plans and whatnot for these characters. So I'm going to take you guys over to the other thing that I have been working on. So let's see, which one is it? Krita. It is Krita. Yep, here we go. So these are all the different characters that I have primarily been working on. I'm going to go over here, and essentially this one is the other one in store, and let's see, this one is my current persona's design. Well, my previous design for him, but it's not finished yet. So these are all each of the different character designs that I have in place for this game, and each of these is supposed to be a playable character that you can talk to or interact with. Let me see, I have that layer off. So yeah, all in all, this is actually about, let me see, this is about, we are at 90 different characters. I know it says 89 on the right side, but the first character design is actually on animation 0, which will be right here. So yeah, that's about how it is so far. Also, I'm going to show you guys the tile sets. So if you haven't noticed, I've actually been working with different tile sets like I mentioned before, but what I found is that compared to the other tile sets that were made by the RPG architect guy Bert, who I very much appreciate for giving these tile sets, what I realized is that I'm a realistic artist, and these are very good sprites, but they're very good sprites for a more abstract game. So all of these sprites up to about right here, all of these different sprites, let me do this. All of these are essentially sprites. Everything up above here is essentially a sprite that I have been working on or made myself, and it's going to take a little bit of effort, especially with this one, especially with that one. Because what I found is when I multiplied it, it did not look too good. I might have to go for more of a hexagonal field. It's supposed to be ice, but what I was working for is I'm trying to design one top layer and one bottom layer for all of this, and then let the game essentially process the auto tiles after that. It's my first time using auto tiles, honestly, so I'd say it was a pretty good experience. So what I want to show you guys now, if it will show up, is actually something that I designed a while back. I showed you guys the character battle animations. Let's see if it loads. Yep. So here we have the different character battle animations. That was an AI generated reference. But for the most part, let's see. I have been using AI generated reference points to inspire what kind of designs I use for these characters, but each character in and of themselves is actually an original design. This penguin's my favorite, honestly. But let's see. For the character designs, one of these layers I remember, here it is. called it Strat Defense Layer. Here it is. So these are the different expressions and poses that these characters are going to have in game, essentially. So different characters, different concepts. I didn't mention the raccoon's name, but his name is actually Oswald Arlington. It's not something catchy like Rocket Raccoon, because that's more of a superhero name, and like, it's honestly just a guy who just woke up one day and found himself mutated into an animal and being hunted by people, so he became tech savvy. So this is Oswald Arlington. So yeah, these are the different character poses for the different characters and possibly like their avatar expressions. But not only that, these were actually the original ideas and original designs for them before I made them into sprites. How I went from this and this to this is, well, honestly, that's a blessing. I will fully admit that it is a blessing, because this is my first time designing sprite work. But what I'm primarily trying to say and trying to actually describe is that there are different poses that I have designed for each of these characters. It's not working because I'm not on frame 1. Okay. So there are different designs and different poses I've designed for these characters for different kinds of expressions. Like here we have anger, here we have deflection or dodging, essentially jumping over an attack. We have the charge up for an attack, and then we have the dodge for like if the character is on all fours. But essentially, each of these different characters is designed to have a different emote. They might not have every emote, but essentially they are designed to have at least 10 of them. So anyway, these are some of the different characters and concepts I have primarily been working on. So we have the punch. This might be the default attack or the strong attack for the most part. We have the kick. So I plan on giving each character at least one combo that they're able to use. But not only that, if I do manage to make this game successful like I'm planning to and like I really want to, I'm going to actually take things a little bit further. So what I'm going to show you guys next is actually it's actually very relevant to what I'm actually planning in the long term for what I'm actually designing for this game. So this is the channel of Mark Haynes, one of the best sprite animators of all times. I'm surprised Nintendo hasn't offered to hire this guy, because he is killing it every single time he uploads something. So this guy does sprite work for both he doesn't do sprite work for Nintendo and Sega. It's basically fan-made content. But the way that he designs his sprite work is actually something that I would like to get into as a content creator myself. Because as you can see on screen right now, he is just way too good at this. And I'm like, it sucks that Nintendo and Sega never actually made a game with animations as good as these. Poor Yoshi and all. But yeah, once these characters are actually fully designed, I actually want to start animating my characters in like series like this in the form of cutscenes and whatnot, potentially in game. So it's just a concept right now. Ooh, that is a Yoshi's my favorite character, honestly, so I just really like this episode because it's like Nintendo disrespects Yoshi by letting him be thrown in the cliffs and whatnot and jumped off of ledges. I feel like that attack was personal for all the times Mario has done something similar to him. So anyway, that's primarily the ideas that I have in design. And before I wrap this video up, I'm going to show you guys one other thing. So this is going to be in the RPG Architect engine itself. This is how the characters actually look inside the full engine. So as you can see right here, these characters are all basically, they don't even take up about 1/4 of the actual screen. But when I mentioned earlier, each of these characters, I want them to have a room. This is essentially what I meant. The square that you're looking at is the sandbox. It is essentially the room, if it will let me zoom in. Come on. Yep. So I plan for each of these characters, and there are currently 83 characters, to have one room. And what I plan to have this be established as is essentially a kind of like Metroidvania-esque open world that is split into different rooms so that it doesn't overload anyone's PC. And potentially only 1 or 2 characters unless it's a special event in each area with special areas. So something I want to avoid, and I just want to say this real quickly, something I want to avoid with my character design, I do not want 2 rooms to feel identical to each other. I want these biomes, rather, and I think I'll call them biomes from now on, to actually be different and unique to each different character. Some of these are aliens, some of these are different kinds of animals, but as you can see here on the right side, I actually started classifying them into different types. So, each of these characters is actually classified as a different kind of furry animal, since I'm technically creating different species eventually. If this game progresses, I'm actually going to be making different species, and I technically already am. These are technically all classified as neonimals, essentially animals that are designed to last with indefinite lifespans. Essentially, that's what the eon stands for in it. But this is also the very first time that I am introducing what a biomon is. And I had to be really careful about this when I looked up copyright and whatnot, because Digimon has a Digimon called Biomon, but it's pronunciated differently, so I'm going to continue with the name anyway. So, Biomon, to be honest, they're not like Pokemon or like Digimon. Digimon are digital Pokemon. They have a mythological aspect to it. The thing about Biomon is that they are naturally highly mutated species that just evolved to have all of these different crazy abilities. There's no like mystery or lore to them outside of the fact that they are essentially like monstrous cryptids that are rapidly growing out of control, and some of them are already at that point, like this guy. But you'd have to play the game to find out why that is, or why he has stars for wings. So in any case, this is it for now. I'm going to show you guys the other areas that I have basically designed. This was originally the map that I had designed previously for all the different characters. It was the maze complex that I was designing. Let me see if my mouse will let me scroll down. I'll do it this way. There's a sidebar here. But yeah, this is essentially another one of the biomes, and this might actually be the biome for, if I can find it. I had him right about here. This would be a biome for this guy once his design is finished. Curious. So this is inspired from Poro, the character from Changed, and there might be some transfers, some latex names. I'd recommend you guys actually go down into the comments. Please go into the comments down below. I want you guys to feel as included in this game as possible. This game is for every member of the furry community. I want this game to be for everyone. I know it's not going to make everyone happy, but what we experience as a fandom is essentially that there are no mainstream games that appeal to us as a community, and that sucks. And what I'm afraid of, essentially, is if one of these games comes by and they get DEI'd, if they get Sweet Baby Inked or something, and essentially they try to get all preachy and make it about gender politics or something insane like that. I just want a furry game I can enjoy, and I've waited a few years actually looking on itch.io and whatnot to see if there is one, and I haven't been able to find one. So I'm now at the point where I'm making one for myself, but as someone who knew how it felt to just like want a game that's just based off of a thriving community created by Disney themselves, so it has to be good. If Disney made like a movie like Zootopia, and now they have Zootopia 2, they cannot deny that the furry community is definitely like a good community to market stuff toward. They're just being ignorant at this point, and I just don't want them to be like, all right, let's throw out a half project and see if this takes off. What I'm planning to do with this game, I'm not planning on making some short-term game, essentially. I'm planning on making an entire universe for the furry fandom, because Marvel got woke and essentially started going broke. DC, I'm not a fan of DC, honestly, and I know a lot of you guys are. Honestly, it's actually a really good universe, but for the most part, I'm not going to let my bias get in the way of it. I'm just going to admit it. Those are not like furry universes, and what I want is a furry universe, because at this point we kind of almost are mainstream. If we're getting our own movies, guys, we're getting our own movies. So at this point, yeah, we are definitely mainstream. And I decided, okay, I guess I'll make one of the first games. And what I'll do is I'll just design it based off of concepts that I've seen based off of different games like League of Legends, like this one. And then I'll just take the ideas, the things that Riot didn't want to add, like this one, and then I will actually just go and I will add them to the game myself. That design that I just showed you was actually for Welland, and it's actually part of what inspired this design for a completely different, unrelated character that is not tied at all to the League of Legends universe, saying that for copyright reasons. But yeah, hopefully by the time this comes out, I perfect my werewolf design. I mastered the front side, the side view, but I want to design a character based off of Warwick. That is not Warwick, again, but yeah, I want to do something to commemorate the release of Arcane and like how far the League of Legends community came as well. So anyway, I'm kind of going on a tangent at this point, but this is essentially how far things are currently. Also, I'm going to keep saying these are not any copyrighted pre-existing characters. They're their own different characters I'm designing. So yeah, that's it for now. And as always, tell me what you guys want to see in the comments below. You guys are not commenting, and I really want you guys to be a part of what I'm designing so that we all can enjoy this when it comes out. Anyway, I'll see you later. Support me on Patreon. Bye!